Well, hello, my fellow friends, my fellow neighbors, and my fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now the kickoff of a very special celebration. Welcome back to another all-new episode of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 120 of this very beautiful program, the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And again, it is not just any old trolley stop. It is the kickoff of the Empowered Publicity 7-year anniversary celebration. Raise your hand if you're excited for the 7-year anniversary celebration of Empowered Publicity. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager here at Empowered Publicity. Thank you so much for spending some time with us wherever you are and wherever you may be. We hope that your July is off to a great start, that you and your loved ones had a blessed 4th of July holiday. There is so much to celebrate. There is so much to be grateful for. I want to just take a brief moment of time before we bring on board our special guest here all the way from Hawaii, by the way. Extra special trolley stop when we have the chance to connect with one of our fellow neighbors from Hawaii, the beautiful state of Hawaii. But for all of you, for everything that you have done for the children of the world over the course of these past several years, and heck, for your entire natural adult lives, we really appreciate this. It's such a blessing to be able to be of service to all of you and to share some of these wonderful and inspiring stories from some of our favorite neighbors, some of our favorite children's authors who are sharing some beautiful messages right now. And when we're talking about celebrations, we're talking about a lot to be grateful for. They're really gifts in many ways, shapes, and forms, right? Each and every day is a gift. We're given opportunities to be of service, to help our fellow neighbors in need. And one of the greatest gifts that we have been given in life is that of our children. Truly, they are gifts from God. Aren't they so precious? They really are. And, shout out to all the moms and dads who are enjoying episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlights, and all the mothers and fathers to be as well, too. And all of the surrogate mothers and fathers as well, if you happen to be a custodian or a caregiver of a children as well. All parents really dream of the best for their children. Perfect health, getting into Harvard University, becoming having a wonderful profession, but really just enjoying their lives, to be the highest and best versions of themselves. But there's times where life doesn't necessarily go according to plan. God may throw a little curveball here and there. But one of our favorite neighbors from Hawaii is really helping all of us to remember that all children are gifts from God. Seeing beyond the surface of any sort of, physical challenge, perceived physical challenge, emotional challenge, and to really help our little ones embrace life and to enjoy our lives to the fullest. And as many of you who have followed Empowered Publicity for the past several years know of my affinity for children that are terminally ill or sick or dying, a large part of what it is that we're doing here at Empowered Publicity is serving as a bridge to one of my end goals, which is to open up a children's hospice for terminally ill children. Someone who is doing such incredible work in the kidlit community, but also for mothers and fathers across the country and around the world. We are very blessed and honored to have as our featured guest here on episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. You can purchase her brand new book, Gift from God, which is now available at Amazon.com. You can also stay connected with Lori Butierries, our featured guest here on episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, on Facebook and Instagram. You can, of course, stay connected with Lori via her social media platforms. We have those links in the description below, and of course the Amazon link below as well. And of course, if you would like to purchase your copy of Gift from God while on Amazon, feel free to leave a 5-star review as well. So the trolley goes from San Diego to Hawaii. Great place to celebrate the kickoff of the 7-year anniversary celebration of Empowered Publicity. Lori Butierries joining us as our featured guest here on the program. Lori, thank you so much for your time, for joining us, and really for bringing this incredible book into the world right now for all of us to enjoy.
Oh, thank you, John, for having me. It's an honor, truly.
When I first learned about your story, and I think I had shared this, not only in the Empowered Publicity Green Room, but also when we first connected with one another, I give you so much credit because, what you've navigated through in your life, most people could just say, yeah, I'll check out and come back next lifetime and take care of this whole thing all over again. Many of our fellow neighbors may be learning about your journey for the first time, which, by the way, before we officially begin, Lori's story is very much going to be touching your heart and really reconnecting with you even stronger with your soul. So if this message of gift from God and Lori's story that you're about to now hear is inspiring you, bringing more joy into your life, or if you feel that it needs to be shared with someone in need, a mom or a dad who's going through a little bit of a challenge right now with their little ones in the process, we encourage you to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel and share this very special trolley stop that is episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Could you share with us a little bit more about your family's journey? Because I honestly feel that I could not do it justice if I just share it and say, here's who you are, here's what you've gone through. Could you share with us a little bit about your journey to this particular point in time and the two beautiful angels, your children, that have really inspired this wonderful journey that you're on right now as part of your work in the children's literature community, the kidlit community?
Sure. Thank you for asking. It's so hard to figure out the beginning, but I guess the beginning would be just my husband and I were high school sweethearts. We got married shortly after joining the military. He was in the Marine Corps. I was in the Navy. And we both deployed. When I got back from Afghanistan, I got pregnant with my daughter. She was a surprise baby, very much wanted, but definitely a surprise. And it was at that point my husband had asked me if I'd stay home and consider being a stay-at-home mom. And after debating and thinking over, I did. And that choice to become a stay-at-home mom, to take care of our daughter, wound up being a huge blessing, because shortly thereafter, so she was born in 2005, and in 2008, when our son was born, he was diagnosed with a terminal and degenerative condition called spinal muscular atrophy type 1. I'm smiling because I'm just messing up here, but not anything to do with the disorder. That's not happy. If you can imagine, it was a very challenging moment in our lives and processing that information. But thankfully, with the right resources at hand, the community that my husband was at this point now in the Coast Guard, just the great support that we had, we were able to rally and provide the needs that our son had, the unique needs that he had for his disorder, because being degenerative, that means the body is breaking down. And at this point, there was no cure, there was no hope. So what do you do in a hopeless situation? What do you do when you can't change your circumstances? You have to change your perspective. And so if I could look at my son and he could be smiling and happy, even though he's enduring all these trials and tribulations that most adults haven't gone through, I could dig deep and find happiness too. I can find reasons to be happy. I can see the beauty in the ashes. I can find things to be thankful for. And of course, those hard times made those good times even more profound. They really stood out and they shine, and you just really treasure them. And then it was shortly after my son's diagnosis that my daughter was also diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And at first we were just very relieved, because it's not terminal. I mean, it's still a challenging disorder of its own, and no two people with autism are alike. And you really don't know the intensity of the disorder and how that's going to affect them until they grow older. And it wasn't until recently, 2 weeks ago, my daughter was also diagnosed with an intellectual disability. And so that caught me off guard. So we're still adapting, we're still growing, we're still learning, but we're doing it. You don't know what you're capable of until you're put in a situation, and you just rise to the occasion. When your kids need you, you find it. You find it within you to supply that. I hope that answers your question, John. I get kind of carried away. So
it's a perfect response, and I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted you to be able to share this, because how does the expression go? You don't necessarily know what someone's going through unless you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Oh, that's so true.
And I do envision at some point in time that I'll be blessed to be a father, but I'm single guy in mind of things. So I have such respect for mothers and fathers that are not only raising their children, but especially ones that are navigating through emotional challenges, terminal illnesses, things along the lines of that. I want to talk about your book briefly before we give a little bit more of a deeper dive into Gift from God. One of my favorite passages of the book, if it's okay if I may share with you, is the creator of heaven and earth does not make mistakes. So I know that you were perfectly made. One of the things that, I shared with you the deep affinity that I have for Mr. Rogers, of course, host of the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on PBS. And he reminded all of his little neighbors, all the children, He did this for us when we were growing up. He basically, I always like to kind of sum it up by saying you're perfect, you're whole, you're healthy, you're complete, that you're loved, you're special, just the way that you are. Take us back, if you could, to those particular moments in time when your son and your daughter, when you received that diagnosis, because I'm sure that there's a lot of, parents or, parents to be that are either experiencing some of the same things that you experienced, whether it be recently or, maybe they just have a fear or a doubt of, what if that happens to my child? What were some of those things that helped you to get through that, but to also become stronger in the process? If you can share that with our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors.
Sure. So, help comes from the most unlikely places. And for me, it was my son's providers. I want to backtrack and also say, when you get diagnoses like these, any type of heart, and it doesn't have to be as severe as SMA, being a terminal diagnosis. Sometimes people in general just don't do well with illness, or when sad things happen and they don't know how to respond, or they feel like they can't help you. Sometimes people just kind of evaporate from your lives, not because they don't love you or they don't care. They just don't know how to help, and it's too hard for them. So that's one of the struggles you do discover along the way, is that you wind up just losing people and your life becomes very isolating and quite lonely. As a caregiver, you're so busy providing the fun for your kids still and trying to help their lives. But as a caregiver, you're struggling. And so my son's providers, his pulmonologist, his neurologist, helped to guide me initially, just like, instead of excuse me, I'm stuttering. I'm not trying to get emotional, but it's so hard. And you think by this point I'd be used to it.
Okay, go ahead. You're doing great.
After my son's initial diagnosis, when you're falling apart and the world's just been upended, instead of focusing on all the things that my son wouldn't do, my son's neurologist showed us how to provide for his quality of life. Well, we can get him enrolled in these therapies. We can get him enrolled in these clinical studies. These are the things that we can do to help him, to make life better. And that mattered. That really mattered. And my son's pulmonologist was just an amazing man. Like he's a good doctor. Like he was not there to be my friend, but he was there to just make sure I was following through on my son's care. And he held me accountable. And sometimes you need that, because in situations like this, a lot of people, because they feel bad for you, they enable you and they excuse a lot of the things that you do. And I didn't need that. I needed somebody to go, are you doing this? Why not? And have that open and honest conversation. And then at one point he challenged me. I was 7 years into this. No nursing. It was just me, because I'm like, I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I should be able to handle this, right? And we set up these unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and we hold ourselves to standards that we would never hold somebody else to, but we do it to ourselves. And so I was so sleep deprived, because my son requires 24-hour care, and my daughter, as well, with being autistic, all their separate and various needs. And I'd run myself ragged. And I was barely operating, and my reaction time was certainly slowed because you're tired. And so the pulmonologist had gotten on me, because he had offered home health nursing several times, and I had denied it, thinking I didn't need it. And he had said, you're doing your children a disservice. I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically the gist of it. I don't offer these for no reason. I offer this because you really need this. Mm-hmm. And after, we said more that, but it was eye-opening. And I certainly don't ever want to put my kids in a situation where I'm harming them, even inadvertently, And so by getting that home health nursing, it was a hard transition. But once I got into the home and we had established trust and built a form of relationship amongst ourselves, when I could leave the house for the first time to go shopping without having to haul my son and all his equipment and worry about his other things that were going on with him, I cried. I just sat in the parking lot and I cried, because it was such a relief to know that there was somebody watching out for my son who either could care as good, or if not better, because they're formally trained, than I could. And it was just eye-opening. Like I didn't feel like it was all on my shoulders. So those were very big things that came into play. Just getting the right kind of guidance, the right kind of comfort from medical providers. And then mental health. I'm going to touch on that, because you don't realize how traumatizing a situation like this can be for yourself and for your children. So whether you need counseling for your kids so they can freely talk about things, like my daughter, when her brother was diagnosed with this terminal illness, she didn't quite understand, so she obsessed over death. She perseverated on the word. It was very traumatizing for her, and watching her brother get sicker and sicker. And then for me, just because I have to make those hard decisions, as the disease progresses, there's no really good answer. There's not really good choice. There's always cons for each decision, but what choice do you have? You have to do the best with what information you have and just pray it's the right choice. So having somebody to talk to, an unbiased party who's just there to let you be your ugliest self, your weakest self, whatever way you can be vulnerable, is highly important. And I would absolutely encourage anybody, whether you're a direct caregiver, parent, a child, a sibling, or just a loved one. I mean, it's hard to watch other people suffer or go through hardships and you feel helpless yourselves to do anything. Talk therapy is wonderful. And so those are the things I would just really like to highlight that have helped me along this journey these last 16 to 13 years.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lori. I'm normally not at a loss for words on my end of things. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you share your story to kick off this 7-year anniversary celebration of Empowered Publicity, because, you know, people have asked me over the years, like, John, why do you do what you do? And I say, it's not necessarily about me. I just happen to be blessed with these gifts to be able to share these sorts of stories. And it's important to utilize this platform that God has blessed me with to be able to get messages such as yours out there, because there are, you know, especially with what parents were navigating through during COVID, that kind of just created its own layer of stuff: fears, insecurities, anxieties, doubts, you know, financial challenges, illness, sickness, death. So that was kind of, I feel like, the pre-COVID, pre-pandemic kind of things. And I feel this is why your book is undoubtedly making such an impact in the lives of so many people right now. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, thank you for spending some time with us here. Episode number 120 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. Our featured guest, Lori Butierries. We are sharing her brand new release, Gift from God. You can purchase your copy right now via Amazon.com. We've again included the link in the description below. While they're one of the many ways that you can support Lori, the wonderful work that she is doing, especially for parents, but most importantly as well for our children right now. You can leave a 5-star review. That's just one of the many ways, again, that you can support Lori and what it is that she is doing right now and moving forth from here. Your son and your daughter, Jacob and Abigail, they've undoubtedly as well provided so much inspiration. This could be a cliche expression, you know, in life, sometimes you're given a lemon and you have to make lemonade, right? This book is it's very sensitive. It's a very sensitive subject. And I feel that I would just like to learn, and if you could share a little bit more with our listeners and viewers about how the book came to be, when there was that seed that was planted in your mind and your heart, where you wanted to be able to take what you were navigating through and say, okay, I want to put this book out there. I want to share this sort of message, because this sort of book, in the way in which you've been sharing it, there's been similar things that have been written before, but not in the way in which that you've written it, coming from the perspective of someone who's gone through what you've gone through. So could you share this a little bit more about the evolution of the book, the creation of the book, and really how Gift from God came to be?
I would love to. Thank you. Ironically, originally I wrote the poem for my daughter when she was first born, because she was a surprise baby. I never thought I'd have children. I was scared to have children. I thought I'd be a horrible mother. And so I was scared. And so when I had her, my husband was not with me. It was just me and her. And I was so overwhelmed with motherhood. And was just something that I had written. So years and years and years go by, and my son's older now. He just turned 13. He's also autistic too. So his development is a little slower than peers his own age. He's a lot younger developmentally. And so he'll tell me sometimes, Mommy, tell me a story. Tell me a story about me. And that's kind of what planted the seed. And I remembered the poem that I had written for my daughter. And then I modified it to kind of encompass both their stories. And so the story is about a mother's love and parenting a child with disabilities. I left it unspecified because I really feel like there's a lot of overlap with disorders and how we cope and how the process, right? How you go through that process. And I really hope that when children read the story or the parents read it to them, they feel loved. But I also hope that mothers in particular, because that's who's the main character in the story, but it applied to anybody, a dad, the journey will resonate, but especially mothers, that they will feel seen, they will feel heard, they'll know that they are not alone. So hopefully it'll assist in both ways.
This book, I had shared one of my favorite passages beforehand, and I wanted to be able to share another one. I will not be afraid of your disorder. And again, like, just to kind of stop right there briefly, is the fact when you hear the term disability or disorder, it can have this stigma associated with it, like it's this bad thing. I will not be afraid of your disorder because God has his hand in it, and I will trust in his reasons today and always. There's been a lot of good. There's been a lot of miracles that have happened, that have come through tragedies and whatnot. Did you find this really challenging to talk about sharing? Because like someone could easily just look at this book and say, you know, my little one has terminal cancer, and you're saying that God has his hand in it. It's very easy to get caught in the emotional minutia of it versus be mindful of the emotions, express them, but kind of look at things from that larger perspective, that divine plan perspective, that everything in life really does have its way of working itself out. Did you find yourself challenged in any way when you were writing this book, or was it just very much like, you know, God really does have his hand in this? It's not just this spiritual woo-woo kind of message just to make people feel better kind of thing.
Right. No, I wouldn't say challenged. I wasn't challenged by it. My faith has been my foundation through this whole journey. If I didn't have the hope in Christ, or just faith that in a better tomorrow, I don't know how I would have survived, you know? And just being able to lean on somebody, because for instance, my husband and I, we're going through the exact same thing. We both love our children, but we couldn't lean on each other because we were both broken and hurt. And we were on an island. We had no family and friends. Some had left us saying, your life is too sad. We can't be friends with you anymore. And that was devastating. But at the same time, I'm very happy they told me, and it didn't just disappear with no reason as to why. So leading you to lean on your faith and just be like, you know, okay, God loves me, and I know he loves my son. And even though I don't know why, because my husband struggled with the why, and a lot of parents, a lot of people struggle with why my kid, why this, why that, and there's no really answer for that. And for me, it was just like, you know, it doesn't matter why, because the why doesn't change anything. He'll still have this disorder. And even if God said like, hey, because of your son going through this, 5,000 people are going to go to heaven, that wouldn't be good enough for me, because I'm selfish, and I would never be okay with that. But knowing that God has the best for my child, he loves him even more than me, helped to like, he's loved, he's wanted, not just by me, but by God. Like, he has a purpose. And if it's just to spread happiness or to remind people that there are people with disabilities out there, because I share my stories, not just this one in particular, but life in general, it helps people to become more sensitive, more aware. You only know what you know. So unless you put the information out there, you'll never know.
I want to mention a couple of things before we continue on with our interview. You're one of the best mothers that I've ever met. I'm not just saying this because we're working together. We're doing this wonderful kickoff celebration of the children's book, or the Empowered Publicity 7-year anniversary celebration, and kicking off the children's book spotlight series for the month of July. Whenever you post something on social media, I can literally feel the genuine bond of unconditional love that you share with your son, Jacob, that you share with your daughter, Abigail. You're fully in the moment with them. You're giving them the undivided attention. And I think this is one of the things that I know that I made a promise to my son, even like, I'm very confident I'm going to have a son at some point in time. We kind of communicated off and on for the past several years. And I think that children at their core, this is just my own 2 cents, but I literally feel that they just want the gift of their parents' presence. That's what I mean. Yeah, you can give them the shiny bells and whistles. You can give them, you know, the trips and the cash and all, and like, that's great. That's fluffy stuff, though. At the core, they just want to feel love. They want you to know that you are there for them, that you care about them, and that whatever it is that they're doing in life, as long as they're following their heart, staying in alignment, that you have their back, that you have their support. There are parents that might be watching episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series and may think, what did I do to deserve this? Or I'm a horrible father, or I'm a horrible mother. And you talk about I feel that hope gets you through the door. Faith is what literally carries you through. Faith is that constant, that so sometimes people will say, I do this as like a little thing quite regularly. Like if I see someone at the grocery store that's feeling down, I'll say, you got something good coming your way. And the response that I hear so often is, I sure hope so. I hope. Hope kind of means that there could be a twinge of doubt kind of thing. But for those that are experiencing some doubt or some fear or some anger or some hurt, what would be some words of comfort that you would like to be able to share with those parents and our listening and viewing audience for the first question? And then as a follow-up to that, now since you will have shared that, what are some ways that you feel that parents can help their little one who's going through an emotional challenge or a terminal illness? How can they help their little one to live their life to the best and to the fullest? Starting off with the first question.
Absolutely. So for the first question, I would just advise a parent who is struggling that their feelings are valid. You don't know how badly you need to hear that. I don't care what you believe, all right? Whatever you're going through, that internal mess is okay. And it's okay to feel that way. And you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. It is a process. And this doesn't happen overnight. It could take years. I think I was quite unhinged for the first 3 years of my son's life, until I realized when he had outlived his prognosis that nothing was set in stone. He didn't have an expiration date stamped on his body. And so I felt like I could finally take a breath and just live in the moment instead of waiting for that shoe to drop. I just kept waiting and waiting. And so I stopped waiting and just started living. And it's hard. His body's still breaking down. Nothing changed. But I just started to really just enjoy life and just kind of wake back up. So for you who are struggling, it's okay. And when you are ready, you will be able to deal with those feelings. They're big feelings. And allow your mind the chance to heal. Allow your mind a chance to just cope in the best way possible. Your body's going to protect itself. Okay? It just will. So don't be ashamed. Don't let anybody make you feel ashamed for what you're doing. There is no right way to handle a situation like this. There's no guidebook. And that's kind of like, again, why this book was created, just to help you know there is a process. And so we discuss that in very gentle terms, because your kids also see this. Your kids see you cry. Your kids see you staying up late at night researching. Your kids see you on the phone. They don't understand it. They know mommy's working, daddy's working, but they see it. This is their lives too. The equipment that's in the background. They may not know the names of it, but it's there, it's present. But I also want to say too, I spoke with a geneticist once about my son's condition because it's recessive. So my husband's a carrier, I'm a carrier, and that's how our son had the disorder. And the guilt that I felt for having given this to my son. And he said, sorry.
It's okay, go ahead.
But he said the most wonderful thing. So those who like science or who lean heavily in that regard, he said, everybody has crappy DNA, Lori, everybody. You just don't know when it will manifest. You don't know what age, what might trigger it. You don't know what two people will combine to create something different. He's like, but everybody has crappy DNA. It's just different things in there. So unless you get tested and you have this full panel workup, you may never know what things you have in your blood. And that helped to take some of that guilt away. And I can't imagine any parent who loves your kid would want to do this. And I would just tell you, try to talk yourself out of that guilt and from bearing it like a weight. You don't need that in addition to what else you have going on. You know your heart, you know how much you care, you know what your kids mean to you, and you don't need that added weight of the guilt. And if you need somebody, reach out, because we're not supposed to bear these burdens alone. We're pack animals, we're social people for the most part, and even if it's just one person, that's all you need, one quality person in your life. Reach out, ask for help, because people aren't mind readers. You would think some stuff would be like a given. It's really not. So ask for that help. There's no shame in needing help.
And when it comes to, now that you've shared that, what would be some ways, and each each way is unique and different under their own, but what are some ways that parents can help their little one, who again is, if they're going through some sort of, even if it's just simply as a bad day, ranging to being on the spectrum to you have a terminal illness, what are some ways that you can share with our listeners and viewers or friends and neighbors to help their child live their life to the fullest?
Just remind them every day that they're loved. I asked my daughter the other day, I said, Abigail, do you know my oldest one? And I had done the same thing to my son, but I'd asked her because she's really quiet. She's more reserved than my son. Do you know that you're loved? Yes. She says a very straight face, yes, matter of fact, that's the autism for her, just very, no jokey. And I said, well, how do you know that? She's like, because you told me. And I love that that is such a strong fact for her. And I think if your kids know that, like they have no doubt that they are loved, they are wanted for who they are. It doesn't matter what disability they have. It doesn't matter what's going on with them. I think that'll give them the strength to face those hard times and let them know too, like there's times I have to pin my son down to a medical bed and he's screaming like, Mommy, make him stop. And I can't because sometimes I have to hurt my son to help him. And I just tell him in those moments, Mommy's here with you. I'm here with you. And we'll do this together. Just knowing he doesn't have to go through it alone helps. And he doesn't like it and sometimes he still gets mad, but at the end he'll say thank you, or he'll just lean on me afterwards and just require that affection and that hugs. And that's just be there for your kids, let them know they're loved, and just tell them their feelings are valid. They have every right. If my son is now discovering that he can't walk, like I think for years he thought when he got older, like his dad, he'd be able to walk. So he's really angry that he can't walk. He said he's not a real boy because he can't walk and he can't feed himself and his arms don't work. He's not going to real school. He's in the homebound services to minimize his exposure to germs. And so, and that's just hard. And just reiterate, you are real. And you tickle his arms, tickle his, like, can you feel this? Can you feel that? So point out the ways in which they are real. Point out the ways that are special about them, build them up, give them that confidence, help them to gain some self-awareness in other ways. About what strengths they have. It's so easy, I think, as human beings to only see the negative about ourselves. So help them see the good things about themselves too.
And I think that's so not even just important, but paramount right now, because as parents and caregivers and custodians of children, I felt this for a long period of time and still do now, that children's minds and hearts are like sponges. So if you tell Abigail all the time, you're loved, I love you, you love yourself, it's going to be planted in her brain where she has that unshakable faith, where she knows like it's basically a done deal, right? So even if she would have someone that would come and bully her, she's like, I know the truth of who I am, right? And it doesn't, kind of lead to any sort of a slippery slope kind of thing. We're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest, Lori Butierries, here on episode number 120 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series, the kickoff of Empowered Publicity's 7-year anniversary celebration. We are sharing her brand new release, Gift from God. It is now available. You can head on over to Amazon.com. While there, one of the many ways that you can support Lori and the wonderful work that she's doing for children, parents, for families, for educators as well, is by leaving a 5-star review. This is literally one of the most beautiful books in the past 7 years that I've had the opportunities to read and share its message for. You're one of the reasons why I do the work that I do. Your children are one of the reasons why I do the work that I do. And, a couple of other things to mention before we officially wind down our time and put a bow on this trolley stop is that I feel that everything in life is a teacher. In some way, shape, or form, it's a teacher. And writing this book, there's so much that you learned. I'm curious to know what Gift from God, putting this book together, writing it, publishing it, talking about it, what that's taught you about yourself and life. And in the process, what your children, what Jacob has taught you about yourself and life, and what Abigail has done the same as well for you too.
Absolutely. My children and their disabilities have made me a more compassionate person. They've made me more aware. I mean, I think I've seen children in wheelchairs in picture books when I was growing up, or you see people in wheelchairs around town, but you don't really notice them, like they're there and you see it, but what does that mean? You don't really know until you're probably in this life. And then it's a whole new awareness. And then you find that you're always in a situation of need of some kind, whether it's medical equipment, supplies, help, you're just always in a situation of need, and that's hard. And so it's humbling because I was such a control, I don't want to say control freak, but like I liked to be in control of everything, and I was super go-getter and hard charger, and that's just not real. The real is that I'm flawed and I can't control everything, and that was very humbling. And then to have to ask for help and to receive it, I just felt so honored. And then to be able to pay that back is like one of the best things ever. To be able to, from my experiences, from my knowledge, whether it be from my military medical knowledge or as a special needs mom, a veteran special needs mom at this point, to help somebody else who's struggling, that's an honor to be able to do that, to be there for somebody who's in need. Because I remember what that was like at the beginning. And so it's just my children have made me a nicer person, not so naive, not so blind to the suffering of others. And I can see the beauty in it too. I don't think I ever thought that before. There's beauty in suffering. Not that I would ever wish that on anybody, but the way people come together, the way they help, the way you overcome things, or the way you endure. And so these have been, they've enhanced my character, and hopefully by doing that have helped me to be a better mom to my children and a better person in general. My book showed me when I was looking for resources and wanted to show my son when he asked for books about himself, there really weren't any. Not his story, not the journey, not the process. And I think that's very important. And so this going into this endeavor, starting this journey, showed me a need that was out there. When I was researching, I had seen on the United Nations saying that the disabled population was the largest minority in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm like, if that's the case, how in the world do we not have resources out here to help our children, to help other adults with discussing this topic? There's no shame in being disabled. And that's another thing too, like that's really helped me to help my son. Like there's no shame in being disabled. It's okay that you are the way that you are. You're fine. We all have differences. We all have things that are, we find challenging or make life hard. And so that has also shown me that, where my own kids are needing more help, more guidance, more aid. And if my kids are not unique in that, so just really trying to help our children in this community feel seen. You're not background characters. You play an important role in life in general, and just to feel more confident about themselves. And when they watch their parents mess up, it's okay. They get back up, they keep going, and then you show them that, there are no limits unless you set these limits upon yourself. Not really, you can modify, you can adapt. And it's just research, asking for help. So that's what this book has showed me, as what I was putting it together and trying to modify it from its original to meet the current need and to reflect our current life. And so hopefully I did that justice.
You have, Lori, and I feel that for all aspiring children's authors, and even for those that have been on their path of children's books and children's literature for a long period of time, you're really a beacon of light, and you're providing a lot of support for children's authors, because it's one thing for writing a debut children's book to just be a book. But it's another thing to blend in your life story. And so what is it that, because you've obviously learned a lot about, becoming a children's author and everything that's involved with all of that, from, publishing process to promoting your book. What would be a little message that you'd like to share with some of the children's authors out there that have just released their first book, or they're the aspiring writers that feel, I've got this children's book inside of me. I don't necessarily know what the time is, but maybe they're getting in their own way, or there's just a little bit of a self-confidence issue. What would be some things that you would like to share to those members of our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors who are either aspiring writers or first-time authors?
Absolutely. So I would say to other authors out there or aspiring authors, if your story has value, if it has merit. Okay, you don't need anybody to tell you that. You don't need anybody to validate that for you. And if you believe in it, if you want it, go for it. And don't get discouraged if you fail. Don't discouraged. If you're on your 7th rejection letter, it may not be for everybody. People only know what they know. I think I said that earlier, but it's true. Like I had an agent tell me that she didn't think it was realistic, what I had written. And I'm like, I know it is because I lived this, but she doesn't live this life. So she can only view it from the lens in which she has seen or experienced life. And that's okay. Okay. She's not your target audience. So just stick to it. Take the constructive criticism. If you need more edits, pay for it if you can. You don't have to do it all at once. There's no rush. Save. You're gonna get what you put into it. So you want a quality book, you want to do justice to your story. So take that time, invest in yourself, invest in what you're putting out there. It'll be worth it, and you'll feel good. Especially like when I got that one, I was terrified because this is a very controversial topic. I feel like. Because it's real, it's raw, and not everybody's receptive to that, and they may not want to expose their kids to that. I hope so, because I think there's still value in overcoming struggles and finding joy in hardship, but not everybody will, okay? And that's fine. They don't have to like it, but you're going to touch at least one person with your story. It's going to resonate with that one person, and that'll be enough. That'll make you cry. It'll make you feel so good because you will be seen, you'll be heard, and they will also be seen and heard, and you'll get that connection. And that matters, that human connection in life for all of us.
I also encourage that anyone in our listening and viewing audience here at the Children's Book Spotlight series, if you are a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a doctor, or if you work at a hospital, I can just, envision this message even getting out more within the medical community. And I know that this, just even the term disability, as we had talked about before, in the Empowered Publicity Agreement, is a very sensitive subject, but I can just, imagine, I've been in hospitals in different settings, whether it be with the transition of my grandmother 8 years ago, or whether it be, I was in a hospital setting, a couple of times before in my life as well. It's not always the most uplifting energy. It's there can be a lot of fear or what's next kind of thing. And just to be able to have your book out there, it really provides tangible faith. And I think that whether you're, Catholic, Christian, Buddhist, you classify yourself as spiritual, or if you worship the sun, right? To be able to have faith in a higher power, a higher being, it definitely helps in the process. I think this is a perfect way to be able to transition to the conclusion of episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series as we officially begin to wind things down. We always like to give a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, Fred Rogers, of course, the beloved Mr. Rogers, who hosted the long-running PBS children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. During different episodes of The Neighborhood, whenever he spoke at college commencement speeches or talks across the country, he always reminded us, and he always kept the time, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or 60 seconds. He reminded all of us to remember those who helped love us into being. And I really believe, Lori, that was Mr. Rogers' way of saying, there's angels that come into our life every day. They may be just, disguised as human beings, right? But people are always there to help open up our hearts, to help walk us home, to really help us to remember who we are, really, so to speak. And there's been a lot of people that have helped you. You've already shared some of them within the program and this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Who would be some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize that have helped love you into being here as we begin to wind down our time here together on the program?
I have to say, my husband has been my best friend. We've been together since we were 17. He's getting ready to be 40 in a couple of months. And I couldn't have done this without him. I don't think I would have wanted to have to go through this without him. We're not perfect, but we make it work. And that's what my kids need and what I've needed. Physicians, nurses are amazing. When we talk about angels on earth, right there, they see you at your worst in a home setting like this. And they come and they take care of not just the child with a disability, they take care of all of us. And they remind us that we're all important. My sisters, they love me too, despite my flaws, and I have many. And I just, just being able to talk to somebody, you need to be able to talk to somebody. So I'm just so grateful for these particular people or professions even, because there's so many doctors and so many nurses. I couldn't even name them all. But I just am so grateful for them. And the other parent support groups, I cannot say this enough, support groups on Facebook. That's why I hope this book is a resource that people can use just as you get started down this path. But when I didn't have a resource, I leaned heavily on other people who have been there before me to guide me and just give me that encouragement that I so desperately needed. So find your group, find your, what is it called? Not your herd, but like it's your
tribe.
Your tribe. That's exactly the word I was looking for. Your tribe. Find your tribe. Build it. And I just appreciate them all. So thank you for allowing me to publicly do so.
Sure. And it's, you have given so freely from your heart to your family, to parents across the country and around the world who have navigated through quite a bit. And this is the point in time, and I really love doing this because there's extra anniversary magic in the air tied to this, but we like to have a little segment here to close out the program called 3 Wishes, which is where, yes, this genie lamp has been with us for some time, many years here at Empowered Publicity. I feel that all of us, Lori, in different ways, shapes, and forms, we all have heartfelt dreams, desires, and wishes, and we have the ability to bring those wishes to form and shape. And we also have the opportunities to do that for other people that come onto our path, so to speak. So as the result of you giving from your heart, you are being given back to in return. So you are receiving 3 wishes on episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Now, with this being shortly after the 4th of July, and also with this being the celebration of Empowered Publicity's 7 years of existence, I always like to believe that, I think the old school expression is be careful what you ask for because you just get it. And now it's like, be careful what you ask for because there's a very good likelihood that you will get it, so to speak. So you can put these wishes out for yourself, for your children, for your family, for the children of the world, for humanity. Some people have wished for something personally for themselves. There's nothing wrong with doing that. What would be your 3 wishes that you'd like to put out there for yourself and for the planet?
Man, that's a tough one. For my children, because they are my everything. I wish that they always feel loved, wanted, and safe. And if I'm not around, that I've helped them be able to take care of themselves and advocate for themselves. For the world, at least for this community, I hope that we make advances to being more accepted, seen for being valuable contributors of society, and they are in their own ways. Everybody is in their own ways. We all have something to offer, and I pray that that's more emphasized in the years to come. For myself, I just hope I continue to find the strength to do what needs to be done, to take care of my kids, and to do my part to better this world in whatever way I can. Because at the end of the day, I just want to know that I made a difference, a positive difference in somebody's life. So those are my 3 wishes.
Well, I would like to add in an additional wish, I guess, for yourself. And this is, since, again, if it were not for people such as yourself, authors such as you, sharing these messages, and having faith and trust in my abilities to get, your story and messages such as this out there, I, in Empowered Publicity, would not be here. We would not be in existence, so to speak. The 4th wish is that, in the gift that I'd like to give to you, Lori, is the ability to continue your career as a children's author, because I feel that there is a very special skill set that you have. You really understand children. You understand their emotions, their feelings, their needs. I also want to give a special shout out to Nicolette Timar, your illustrator, such an amazing job. And I feel that you're always attracted to the right people as well too. So I do hope that this is not your last children's book. So I'm putting out the wish and the intention for more children's books that are in your future into the years ahead as well.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
You're most certainly welcome. And we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow Shining Stars. Notice how we color coordinate. Gift from God, the front cover, it's got a little bit of a green font motif. So we color coordinate here on the Children's Book Spotlight. And you can purchase your copy of Gift from God. It is now available. You can head on over to Amazon.com. While there, Leave a 5-star review if you feel guided to do so. You can also stay connected with Lori on her Instagram and her Twitter pages to find out and see some of the amazing work that she's continuing to do. There's a special little surprise around the back to school season. So by subscribing or by following Lori on Instagram and Twitter, you'll be able to see something very special that we had the opportunities to create just a couple of short days ago, which will be a release to the world during the back to school season as well. Lori, again, this is I really wanted to have you be a part of the Children's Book Spotlight series and to kick off this anniversary celebration, because I just look back and it's like 2014 through 2021. I feel that we're all stepping into the next part of our life, the best chapter of our life, and I'm looking forward to just seeing things continue to blossom and to get better for yourself and for your entire family. Jacob and Abigail are two very special souls. I can tell that they care a lot about you and your husband. And I'm so blessed and honored that our paths have come across and that we're able to share this message. And yes, of course, there is much more magic, by the way, as well. This is a wonderful brand new mug that I actually just received that is now the new official mug of the Children's Book Spotlight series. There is much more magic and miracles to come, a part of Empowered Publicity, as part of Empowered Publicity 7-year anniversary celebration and beyond. So raise your hand if you had fun listening and watching and enjoying episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Lori did, we hope that you as well have done so too. If this message has inspired you, if it's brought healing into your heart, if simply you now know that faith is possible. You've heard Lori Butierries shared her courageous story and her journey with her family. And if you're going through a little bit of a challenging time right now and you say, you know what, I know that I can get through this and even become better and stronger on the other side. If you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, someone who is going through their own challenging time, maybe their little one has an emotional disability or may have a terminal illness. We encourage you, if you already haven't had the chance to do so, to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop. That was episode number 120 of the Children's Book Spotlight series on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. If you are a children's author, if you are a children's illustrator, and you would like to share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new children's book here on the Children's Book Spotlight series, back to school season is just around the corner. And yes, lo and behold, very soon it's going to be the holiday season as well too. You can head on over to our official website, which is empoweredpublicity.com. You can connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Facebook and Instagram at Empowered Publicity and Twitter at Empowered_PR. We also want to give two little tips to the cap as well. One to one of our dear favorite neighbors from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You may remember him as Mr. McFeely, again on the long-running children's television program on PBS, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. David Newell has been kind to spend many a month with us here in 2020. One of the true highlights of the 7 years of Empowered Publicity is to have the opportunities to work together and collaborate with David Newell, who again played Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. If you're a children's author and would like to have your brand new book be reviewed by David Newell on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast each and every month, David and I, we open up our hearts together and we align and we share. We deliver, actually, not even just share, but we deliver heartfelt reviews of the newest children's books from some of our favorite neighbors around the world. If you're interested in having us feature your book on a forthcoming episode of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us at empoweredpublicity.com or any of our social media platforms as well. Also, a big special shout out to Laura Kavanaugh and to the entire team at CBS 8 here in San Diego. We've had the opportunities for the entire calendar year of 2021 to date to create and give back to the children, parents, families, and educators here in San Diego, California, and beyond through Empowering Reads for Kids, which is where Laura and I have the opportunities to open up the pages, dive into the pages of the newest heartfelt children's books from who we refer to, of course, as the shining stars in the kid-lit community. If you are a children's author and would like to have your book be featured in a forthcoming installment of Empowering Reads for Kids on CBS 8, the CW San Diego, you know how to connect with us via our official website and social media platforms and on screen. And of course, if you would like for more information on Empowered Publicity, if you would like to have us be of service to you in our 8th year of service of PR from the Heart, you can schedule your courtesy discovery call by heading on over to our official website, empoweredpublicity.com, and connect with us via any of our social media platforms on screen. And again, let us see how we can be of service to you. One final time, the brand new children's book from Lori Butierries, Gift from God. It is now available. You can head on over to Amazon.com to purchase your copy or even several copies for those that you feel can very much benefit from Lori's story and from this wonderful message. You can leave a 5-star review if you feel guided to do so. You can also stay connected with Lori on social media, Instagram and Twitter. And of course, that's just, again, one of the many ways of many that you can support Lori in the process. Again, we want to thank all of you for your support of Empowered Publicity over these past 7 years, because as I've said from day one, without you, there would be no us. We want to thank you for your support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Just around the corner, we're going to be celebrating the 3-year anniversary of this program that we launched at the end of August, I believe, or the beginning of September in 2018. So another milestone is just around the corner. Just a little reminder to keep celebrating even those mini milestones in your life as well. We want to thank you above all else for what it is that you are continuing to do for the children all across the country and all around the world. And in the process, we want to thank you for helping to walk home the children of the world. So for Lori Butierries, for myself, John Masiulionis, we hope that you have enjoyed episode number 120 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. And just one last thing, is one little tip of the cap to our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers. At the end of every episode of The Neighborhood, he would always help children to remember how special that they were, that there were people out there that cared for them. So just remember that you are healthy, you are whole, you are complete, that you are loved, that you are special, just the way that you are, that we like you just the way that you are. Mr. Rogers would say that I like you just the way that you are. He would always say 1, 4, 3, because there was 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. We like to say 2, 4, 3. As Lori was kind enough to give us some of her free time here this week, we always like to say that there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. So we love you. This has been such a great way to start off our 7-year anniversary celebration at Empowered Publicity. We look forward to the next trolley stop as we hear the trolley. When we hear the trolley, we know that it's time to go. But we look forward to connecting with all of you once again very soon for episode number 121 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. I think that means a bicentennial's just around the corner, because I think bicentennial's 200, whatever 125 means. We're almost celebrating that milestone as well too. But again, we want to thank all of you for helping to walk home the children of the world. So until next time, goodbye for now. Take care.